Senator from New Jersey.
I ask that the procedure under the quorum call be initiated.
Without objection.
Madam President, I come to the floor on the verge of what could be a government shutdown. And I've listened to my colleagues throughout the day suggest, particularly on the other side of the aisle, that this is only about dreamers, although dreamers should be able to realize their dream. And I have been as passionate as anyone about believing that these young people who only know that flag, the flag of the United States, its stars and stripes, who only sing one national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, who only know one country, the United States of America, have and should have an opportunity to ultimately realize their dream. They responded to the federal government's request to say, come forward, register yourself, give us all types of information, trust us, and they did. And now the government must respond to them. But what's going on here is beyond dreamers. This is the federal government hurling from short-term funding resolutions to short-term funding resolutions instead of having the appropriations passed when it was due last October, but instead of working to pass the necessary appropriations to keep the government not just operating, but to do it efficiently on an annual basis so that our institutions can appropriately plan, so we can save money instead of spending more money because of what it costs for short-term preparations. Our Republican colleagues, they were busy, yes, but they were busy in October and November and December, not preparing for the government's need, but to have a drive and ecstasy towards tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country and large corporations on the backs of middle class and working families. That's what they spent their time on. And then they come and say, oh, but it's urgent that we do this now. You had months in which you did nothing. Nothing. Now, I must say that for my friends, I've heard many of them are budget hawks, deficit hawks. This is no way to run a government, much less the greatest country on the face of the earth. We want to dictate to countries when we want to give them assistance or we're trying to get them to do trade things about being responsible. And this is the image that we send to the world. Now, only in Washington, I've been here a while, only in Washington could Republicans who control the House of Representatives, the United States Senate, and the President of the United States at the White House try to blame a Democratic minority for their failure to govern. Let's be clear why we are here today. Instead of providing our military, our first responders, our health care centers, and all of our federal agencies with long-term funding they need to efficiently and effectively serve the American people, Senate Republicans want to pass yet another stopgap, hopefully insufficient, short-term continuing resolution. Now, in fairness, I tried to give my Republican colleagues the benefit of the doubt. I voted for the first continuing resolution. I voted for the second continuing resolution. But enough is enough. I got my start in local government. I was a member of a school board. Then I was a mayor. Then I served in the state legislature. Let me just say, there's no place that my experience comes from that you could do what we do here. You needed to have a budget done on time, and maybe you might lapse a day, what would have been for us last October, but you couldn't get beyond that. Couldn't do that in the state legislature for the state budget, couldn't do it on the city council, couldn't do it on the school board, can't do it, families can't do it in their own lives. We shouldn't do it on behalf of the 230 some odd million people who, the 320 some odd million people, I should say, who call America home. Now, the CR, this continuing resolution, keep the government open one more time for the fourth time, not the first time, not the second time, not the third time, but the fourth time, because all busy about tax cuts for the wealthy, but not taking care of everybody in terms of government funding. It kicks the can down the road again without making the necessary investments into our communities. It continues the chaos and the dysfunction that has defined the last year of Republican control. It doesn't fund community health centers, something that I'm so proud of in my home state of New Jersey. Federally qualified health centers takes everybody through the door, all takers. You have insurance, great. You don't have insurance, we bring you. We take care of you. You have Medicaid or Medicare, fine. Bottom line, a system that delivers high-quality health care. This doesn't do it. It leaves them lurched out there. The CR doesn't set budget numbers to fund national security or domestic investment priorities. You know, we talk about our national defense, and yes, I'm one of those, I'm willing to plus up national defense, but guess what? The non-defense side of the budget is about homeland security. The FBI, the Secret Service, the Treasury Department, the National Institutes of Health that protect us in terms of illnesses, the CDC. All of these elements are in the non-discretionary, I should say they're all in the domestic discretionary side of the budget. So they're important too. But you don't fund budget numbers that allow your national security or domestic investment priorities to take place. I heard Leader McConnell say last night the CR is about helping all Americans. Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't do squat for the 3.5 million Americans who call Puerto Rico their home and who are suffering an appalling human catastrophe in the wake of devastating storms. It doesn't adequately assist communities in Texas and Florida and western states ravaged by fires that are still waiting for Congress to act on disaster relief. And even the Secretary of Defense's spokesperson said that we have been working under a continuing resolution for 3 years now. Our current CR expires tomorrow. This is wasteful. This is the Secretary of Defense's spokesperson. This is wasteful and destructive. We need a fully funded FY18 budget or face ramifications for our military. And I would add that these young people, many of them who wear the uniform of the United States, willing to risk their lives and die for the country that seems to want to reject them, they deserve an opportunity to have a resolution at last. Now, let me just say that I know that the President has said that maybe the country would benefit from a good shutdown. I don't ever think there's a good shutdown. And I know that in the past, when it was President Obama, he said that, oh, it's the president who's the leader. It's the president who has to bring everybody into the room. It's the president that has to get people to come to a conclusion. Well, wow, you showed up late in the game, very late in the game, in the final hours. And finally, I think all of us who have been around either this institution or the Congress know that you need 60 votes in the United States Senate. I've compromised many times on foreign policy, compromised with my colleagues to try to achieve a solution for the DACA. Hard choices to be made, things I don't like, but I compromise. But let me tell you something. 60 votes, you don't even have your 60 votes. Two of the Republican colleagues have said, and I understand why, they don't want to keep it kicking the can down the road, said no, they're not going to vote for this. One of our colleagues is infirmed, is not here. So you're not anywhere near even your numbers. So that means when you need 60 and you're far from it, that you have to engage in a negotiation and a compromise. It is not just stick it and accept it. Because when that happens, then we're on the dangerous path that when this short-term resolution doesn't solve itself, if we agree to a month, then ultimately we'll have another CR. And maybe we won't we'll like even less what's in that CR. Maybe there'll be language that we'll find particularly a problem. Maybe there'll even be numbers we don't care for. The point is that if you know you need 60, you don't wait until the final hours to try to come to a negotiation. I'd rather live a day on my feet than a life on my knees in defense of the 9 million people who call New Jersey home to make sure they get what they need, not what I'm shafted to try to have to accept. So I personally am for a very short-term resolution that makes leadership and the White House and all of us, as far as I'm concerned, here working to achieve what the American people deserve, which is a full funding of their government. No more short-term lurching from crisis to crisis. An opportunity to take care of those Americans who have been hurt in hurricanes and storms and fires, and the people of Puerto Rico. An opportunity to give dreamers their dream. An opportunity to fund our public health centers. An opportunity to fund the Children's Health Insurance Program, not for 6 years, but for a decade. And we've seen study after study that says we could save millions if we funded it over a decade. Why should we not save millions? An opportunity to deal with the pensions that people who worked a lifetime and through no fault of their own now find themselves short of. Let's help them retire with the dignity they deserve. An opportunity to make sure that the National Institutes of Health that are doing groundbreaking research on the Alzheimer's that took my mother's life, on the Parkinson's that affects our neighbors, on the diseases that affect our people, but you can't do long-term trials if you don't know what your funding's going to be. And the list goes on and on. The people of America deserve far better than what they're getting here. And I reject the proposition that you can just stick it to us and suggest that we have to accept it. You create the crisis, and then you want us to accept it. Well, it's time to get the job done on behalf of the American people. That's why some of us will not support a longer-term funding resolution, because all it will do is get us right back to where we are today. The American people deserve much more than that. They deserve that, and there's no reason we can't deliver that. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor and observe the absence of a